In anticipation of the Maul Shadow Lord show, I wanted to make a video talking all about, the trailers for the Maul Shadow Lord show and the clips they've posted. I'll probably timestamp them all at the bottom for this video, but I'm going to talk about all the trailers first, then all the clips, because I feel like the clips are a bit more spoilery. I don't know. Just felt right. Yeah, let's hopefully keep this to under half an hour. I mean, that would only be much more time than the video clips I'm talking about take. So yes, anyways. Also, I'm only talking about the officially released clips and trailers, not any that have leaked out or other spoilery things. So, starting with the initial trailer. There's no voice lines here. Apparently something says heat. But yeah, so we see a bunch of red and black imagery, and it's all being cut in half. There. Is this meant to be anything? That looks like a bit of a person down here. I don't know. I don't know. That's going forwards. I want to go backwards. Yeah, so obviously we have his lightsaber. Let's just go back to the start. So we just get some ink blots. I don't see anything interesting yet, but then we cut into his lightsaber, ignited, some swirling, some more swirling, then that's definitely Maul's falling into. I really feel like that's supposed to be something, but I have no idea what. Maul's falling down, cut in half. In Kenobi, so we're just flashing through Maul's life here, really. Don't see anything here or here. And this is not really flashing through his life, we're just flashing through his 2 moments of death, because this is very much Twin Suns, an episode of Rebels, which I have talked about and will not do so here. Then it now forms more into his tattoos for his face, with the trailer tomorrow, because that's what this trailer is. And apparently someone's sighed. Yeah, so now we get the first proper trailer, which has Maul. Well, not Maul, but we have Maul's city, or not Maul City, the city that the show's going to take part in. That looks an awful lot like a city plan like Coruscant. I think it looks cool. This big circle thing, I can't imagine it's going to be some set piece later on in the show at some point. Not quite sure what, but I like it. Yep. Then we have some. This is all Maul's dialogue, I believe. Over, I think this is him talking to some other gangster trying to make a deal, saying times have changed. Then we see some of his people straight down the building. He shall show the galaxy for what truly is, as some stormtroopers are coming in to this story. As far as I can tell, the rough flow seems to be there's a world that's fairly independent from the Empire that's then being taken over by the Empire more in response to, possibly just because the Empire is building up power at this point by the Empire itself. It might be because they've noticed Maul's here, that's why they're focusing on it, and certainly will be why the Inquisitors eventually get involved. But I don't know if the Stormtroopers' arrival will be triggered by the rise in crime as a result of Maul, or if it's just going to be the Empire showing up. But yeah, he's going to show. I think he's talking to Devon here. It's the implication. But Devon's the Twi'lek, Darth Talon equivalent character, maybe. Or he's going to show her the galaxy for what it truly is. As the Stormtroopers arrive, so he's showing her that the Empire is building in power, and that they're coming to take over this world. And then we see a bit of a standoff between two rival gangsters. I think, so Maul was involved in that meeting at the start of the episode here. This was, actually, is that Maul? I don't know, maybe this is Maul. It doesn't quite look like the same one. Anyways, yeah, so these two gangsters get into a shootout, and start fighting. Yeah, here's Maul. This is where the episode started with. He's pouring some tea into some cups, and there's some incense burning by the looks of it, and there's a small light, a lightsaber here. I imagine that's Devon's lightsaber. He's telling her to see things from a new perspective. We then see some pikes lining up opposite a door being blasted open. Yeah, which, although I don't think that is actually this. I don't think this door is actually opposite the pikes. I think that's some tricky trailer editing. When I first watched this, I thought that the pikes were working with Maul. However, later trailers will dispute that theory. Anyways, yeah, so this door that's blown off. We then see some stormtroopers. That's actually a different door again. They really are doing some tricky editing here, and they are. Are they shooting at all? Yeah, I think that one's shoot. I think this one here is shooting. That blaster's obviously coming at them. Yeah, and then yeah, so they're breaking into somewhere. We don't really know where. Then we get Devon and her Jedi Master saying, and she's telling him, is this what our future holds? She's clearly questioning the way of the Jedi and whether or not they should team up with Maul. But she's still protecting the innocents from the Empire here as they come in, blocking the lightsaber bolts as the innocents run away. I think one of those innocents was the chief of police character. And Maul's inviting her to look more closely as we pan to the lightsaber. And now we see Maul's on the bounty hunter desire. So clearly he gets identified at some point. Well, we knew that because that's where the Inquisitors come. But yeah, this is all setting up for that. And we just see the speeders flying through. Then we get this shot, which I'll talk about more later when we get the full clip. And he's offering her an opportunity, as he puts it, on April 6th. Weird that he'd use our dating system, but what will you do? Yeah, so he then comes out. Again, I'll talk about this clip more later. When we get the full clip. We've got a pretty full clip there. Now we see Maul intimidating Devon in a dim lit room. I don't think this is the same room as the previous one where he was presumably talking to her. And she identifies him as Maul, and we get our first good look at Maul in the trailer. And yeah, he looks good. Does he have 2 stars on his cheek? Doesn't look like it. Fairness, I don't even know if Lawless carried on with those 2 stars. But he got 2 scars in his duel with Vizsla, and I really wish that he kept those scars, but it doesn't look like he has. And as I say, I don't even think he kept them into Lawless. But yeah, it would just be neat. As like a mark that Vizsla's left his mark on Maul. I think that'd be neat. From Traces of the Clone Wars, of course. Now we see some ships arriving and a Star Destroyer. And he's telling, I think he's actually talking here, so he's telling Rookcast that we all have been made to suffer. And then we see it's not quite an ATSD, is it? It's ATSD adjacent, though, that's for sure. Where's the good shot of it? And it's starting to loom over the civilian population as the Empire, as shadows being cast over the Empire, to symbolize the Empire is taking over. And hey, look, we get some nice aliens. They've appeared a few times. They've appeared a lot, obviously. You're just wearing a mask. You could be anyone. Not sure what that last one was. And someone here is saying we survive. I think it's Maul talking to Rookcast. Then we see that actually it wasn't Devon blocking the first thing, was it? That's Devon jumping onto it. Yeah, that's her master blocking the blaster from the gunship. Then we see Devon jumping onto a gunship. And I don't know if this is intentional, but when I was just watching this, I thought that it reminded me a lot of at the start of the Siege of Mandalore when Ahsoka jumped onto one of these very same gunships and opens the cockpit because the pilot inside was trapped. But, well, is Devon going to just let the pilot out? Nope, she forces him out. Which implies to me that this is somewhat later in her journey, because she's just straight up murdering that clone, and it feels like it's a I'm coming to get you, not self-defense type thing. Then we see Devon's master, who of name I forget, is meditating. Maul is telling Rookcast that we survive, but we don't live. Because, well, they're just surviving. They're not actually thriving. He wants to succeed. He wants to do well in life. But they're not doing that currently. Then we see a bit of a speeder chase, and Devon's master's forcing up a speeder. He's not really speeders, but you know what I mean. Over his head, and we'll see more of where that scene goes in later. Yeah, I'm not doing this in half an hour, am I? And then we see Maul intimidating some people who are they working on... they're analysing a droid for presumably trying to get the memories out of it. And Maul stares him down, and I think what Maul's actually doing there is probably... I feel like this is going to be Maul trying to team up with the Chief of Police, trying to say, hey, we can work together to take on the Empire, but that is a theory. That's very much a theory. It might be just Maul saying, hey, stay the fuck away from me. We then get Maul alongside a couple Night Brothers, and he's defecting some blaster bolts, and he's cutting down a pair of security droids. And, well, yeah, that's pretty brutal. Then we get one of the Night Brothers with the big Gatling cannon shooting... See, he's shooting right past Maul there, isn't he? Because that's Maul, because those are some robot legs. Maul's robot legs, aren't they? So there's still someone at the top of this ladder that he's shooting at. And Maul's just jumping out to the side. I hadn't noticed that before. Then this is Rookcast, and she's shooting a flamethrower at some security guards. And then the Inquisitors arrive. And Maul's talking about the Emperor. And he's having a fight with Marok, the first brother. And it's going quite well. Then... that was Marok telling Maul that the Emperor wants Maul dead. Which, yeah, we knew that. Yeah, where were we? Don't mind. Yeah, so anyways, they're having a fight. Marok does some spins, and Maul is saying chains can be broken, which is, I think it's part of a Sith code, is about chains being broken. Certainly something he says while he's raving mad. And then he's turning to face, some more Imperial ships are arriving. That might even be the beginning of a shot where we see the stormtroopers jumping out of the ship earlier on in the trailer. And Maul is staring, being angry. This is Devon's flying around in the commandeered gunship. As they're shooting around, blowing up more gunships. Then there's a big fight on a bridge between... That looks to be Maul's friends. We got some stormtroopers back here. I think there's more stormtroopers up there. Oh yeah, this just looks to be Mandalorians and Night Brothers. Not quite sure what that one is. Is that just a... Is it yellow because it's actually yellow? Is that lighting? That's just a Mandalorian. It was just lighting making it yellow. Who shoots yellow blasters? I don't know who shoots yellow blasters. Do Mandalorians shoot yellow blasters? That would make some sense, but... This one... No, that was... That one there, that looks to be a Mandalorian. It's definitely shooting a red blaster. Anyways, yes, we got a fight on a bridge. That's probably going to be a cool little set piece. Reminds me in the beginning of Siege of Mandalore arc, where Kenobi's being held down, and then Anakin saves him on a bridge. Don't know if it's meant to be a reference to that, but that's... Don't know if it's meant to be a reference to that, but that's what I'm thinking of when I see it. And then we get Maul swinging his lightsaber blade and round and slicing several stormtroopers in half. And it comes back to him mid-fight with Marok. And then this looks like a bit of a cool fight. And then we see Maul getting a kill. But of course, this person he's killing is very much not Marok. But again, they like their tricky editing in this trailer. It's definitely implied to be Marok he's cutting down here. And I think that's the final shot of the trailer. There's Maul pulling a cool pose. Yep. All in all, pretty cool trailer. Me likey. So now, this is the chief of police talking, saying that they're going after a syndicate leader. I think these are police, not Mandalorians, by the looks of it. Yeah, it was definitely more like police than Mandalorians. Walking in, he's associated with several criminal organizations, and they find some corpses and a wrecked robotic arm. And then they see... I don't think that's Maul himself. It's kind of hard to tell. I think that's just a night brother down there. It might be Maul. Now, the legs look like they're human, like they're fleshy legs. So I think that's just a night brother. And proficient with a laser sword. And this has been spoiled much more by later trailers, but you can see here, Maul's got a lightsaber in this hand and a lightsaber in this hand. His lightsaber is now even cooler. He can merge it together from 2 blades to 1 double-sided blade, and I really like that. And I noticed that detail in this first trailer. It has admittedly been shown off a lot more later trailers, but I noticed it back here. I just didn't make a video on it back then. And there you go. Oh shit, Maul. Where were? Yeah, blah blah blah. Proficient with a laser sword. He does that. He scares them. Right. Then we get some people running across this corridor. That looks like some security guards, and they're just running through. Then we get Maul deflecting a laser bolt, and then we get that same shot of him coming up with droids. Oh, the Empire tried to kill Maul, yeah. And then we see the Empire occupation underway, and their betrayal, presumably the Empire's betrayal, demands consequence. Although I imagine that line could be taken out of context, and he's talking about someone betraying him, probably the Pikes, because the Pikes have betrayed Maul, because he was setting up for them to be a part of his criminal empire post Siege of Mandalore. And, well, they're not part of his empire in this episode, at least at some point in Shadow Lord. And Maul's cutting down some... Well, he's cutting down some Pikes there. Yeah, but he's deflecting some bullets of some stormtroopers, and then cutting down some Pikes. And that looks like it's his third... you know what? I wouldn't actually be surprised if this shot is right before this shot. So we go from, like, he cuts down this Pike, and then in the first shot, and then we cut to the wider shot as he cuts down the last 2 Pikes. And we're descending into there. The Empire tried to kill him. Their betrayal demands consequence. Yeah. And he descends, and that consequence requires... we see him drip his fingers. A weapon. As we see that over Talon. So, presumably, he's going to be using Talon as a weapon. Which does imply it's more against the Empire, because Talon is much more useful against the Empire. He doesn't need her to murder some Pikes, but he does need her to help him deal with the Empire and the Inquisitors. So maybe he's talking about the Empire there. But the Empire didn't really betray him. Palpatine betrayed him, but the Empire didn't. Yeah, he's cutting down Talon, or not cutting down, he's watching Talon, and then she's now cutting down stormtroopers, implying that he has turned her to help cut down some stormtroopers. And then we see Maul walking down a long walkway to capture and intimidate Talon. Not Talon. I'm calling her Talon for a little bit, haven't I? Her name's Devin, I think. Yeah, and then we see some Pikes line up their shots again, and we don't see what's at the end of a corridor, and then we cut to a different corridor, because this is very much not the same corridor as that, like, at all. It's probably part of the same complex, but it's very much not the same corridor. Maul ignites his lightsaber, and Devin's telling her master that Maul wants him to fight as allies against the Empire, as we see him cutting down some Pikes. And her master tells her that the Empire may be our common enemy, but Maul will never be our ally. Which is true. He wants to be her master, almost certainly. And he almost certainly wants this little man here to be dead. And he's tying down some more pikes. Very cool. Then we see a train going through. Then Maul's behind the train, and then he's not behind the train. Ooh, spooky type shot. Then we see Chief of Police, who's saying whatever it takes, which is probably him agreeing with Maul, to side with Maul, I'm guessing, against the Empire. The Age of Maul. I don't know if this guy's actually going to be a character, but he just feels like he's going to be such a fun character if he is. Big bad with big guns who likes simple things. And then, I'm assuming this is a lesser cop is telling the chief cop to keep things are escalating out of their hands, presumably as the Empire's coming in full force. Inquisitors are showing up, and they didn't really want that. And then, actually, and now we see what those Mandalorians were doing as they were descending, at least presumably. This is the end of that shot, because they're climbing down the building. They shoot some grapnel launchers, and they cut a speeder and some gunships down with some wires, which is a neat trick. Then we see, I think he's the 11th brother, or the Tails Inquisitor. He's got a very cool design, and I don't think he's going to survive this show, because both him and Marok, when we see them next, they die and disintegrate into Witchy Mist. Marok is very clearly associated with Elsbeth's Witchy Mist. And she's a Night Sister, whose Maul's a Night Brother. They very well might have some connections. And this Inquisitor, when he dies as well, in the Tails episode, he becomes Witchy Mist as well. So maybe he was also given to Elsbeth to be reanimated in a way, or some other Night Sister to be reanimated. I don't know, but I feel like this show will end with both these Inquisitors dead and being shipped off to be resurrected by a Night Sister of some sort. And then that was the Chief of Police telling someone that the Empire will lock the planet down, which they clearly don't want. And now we get Marok intimidating the Chief of Police. And then we cut to him coming in and attacking Devon, and he asks her, Jedi, where is Maul? And, well, that implies that she would know where Maul is, so she's probably already turned to ally with Maul by this point, as he's fighting her and breaking her down. And then Maul shows up behind Marok, I think, saying, I'm right here. And then he jumps in and has a fight with Marok on a moving train, and before Devon hops in to assist him. And Maul saves Devon there, and Devon jumps up and kicks him away. And presumably this is after the fight, though it might be before. Maul tells her that, let us have our revenge. So maybe the Inquisitors have killed her master, maybe Maul's killed her master and has told her that the Inquisitors did. I feel like by this point, her master is dead. Or maybe she just wants revenge against the Empire as a whole because of murdering the Jedi. But he's definitely trying to turn her at this point. And then she's running away. We get more of that battle on the bridge. And we see the two Inquisitors fighting someone. And then we see one of the Night Brothers shooting a rocket launcher. And very much not taking out whatever that was. But he's shooting a rocket launcher at something. Then we get the big Gatling gun guy here again. And assuming that's Rookcast. Blasting back the stormtroopers before Devon and Maul come into their aid, although I think that's again a bit of trailer trickery because it does not look like the same fight to me. Anyways, they do come in to fight together against stormtroopers. Then we get Maul fighting the 11th brother, and actually Marok's there in the background presumably because there's someone else with a lightsaber there. And yeah, then Devon comes in, she does some more cool fights, and she says, we're not going to take out the whole Empire. I think she's probably talking to her master there. And then we cut to Maul taking on this AT-ST and cutting it down as if to say, but I can. Although, of course, I don't think these two scenes are going to be remotely connected in the show. I think that's, again, some trailer stuff. Yeah. Maul saying, but I can, or but he can. And he does a cool look at the camera. Yeah, Maul can take down the Empire. No, he can't. He really can't. I feel like that's what the trailer's trying to imply. Yep, then we get into the second actual trailer. I will have my revenge. And he's saying they tried. This is obviously the Phantom Menace. They tried to kill me. Maul ignites his lightsaber. And then we do cut to when Kenobi is fighting. And Kenobi cuts him in half. And then this is. What is that? I think that might be him being awoken by Talzin when he's being resurrected. Then we see a shot of him coming out of the fighter, and he's ignites his lightsaber. Then we see him fighting Ahsoka. They fail, and I think he said they failed there. And he's turned down some pikes again. And we see him now. Is this him leaving or entering? Yeah, this is him entering that long walkway again. Then we see... Was there a cut in this fight? No, this is just him. Then we see him versus Sidious. And it's weird they say that Sidious tried to kill him here, because Sidious was very explicitly not trying to kill him here. And Sidious said he had more use for him, and then the son of Dathomir has a plot which involved him not wanting to kill him here. I will not be talking about that. But we should get this cool three-sided cut. We see Maul being angry at Sidious in this fight. Then we see them fighting in this fight. In a long shot, and then we see Sidious being angry and he takes over in the fight. I really like this shot here, all framed by the lightsabers. And then we get Sidious torturing Maul with Force Lightning at the end of that fight. As the scenes of Marok actually are splicing into that, as if Marok's coming out of the Force Lightning. That's neat. And then we set him and Maul having a fight, of course. Then this is the same fight as a bit earlier, I think, where he's fighting both 11th Brother and Marok. And he's fighting them 2v1 there, because Maul can 2v1 Inquisitors. Hell, as we see in Rebels, he can 3v1 Inquisitors. And Maul saying, but I will have my revenge. Then we get him fighting the Inquisitors in what looks like it's a... in what looks like... Then we get him fighting some Inquisitors here in what looks like it's another fight that we haven't seen elsewhere. Then we get that same shot of him looking up, smiling again. Then we get into... I think this is the weirdest edited trailer, as Maul... We get the shot of Maul's arrival in Phantom Menace, which has a flash of going red and white for some reason. And then he removes his hood, and we flash through a bunch of different shots of Maul. Where does it start? Yeah, so it starts here. Then we get Maul. Don't recognize most of his shots. That's the actual clip. Yeah, we get some Mauls with hood as he's removing his hood. And once he's removed his hood, we get some more Mauls without hood shots. That might be Siege of Mandalore Maul, I'm not sure. And then these shots cut into him about to swing his lightsaber to fight some pikes. And he murders the pikes up. And then that is him cutting down a security droid, but not a pike. Then we get him alongside two Night Brothers, including the big gun Happy Night Brother, having a fight, and then go back to that fight. And they parallel him having his lightsaber open here, with him opening his lightsaber in Phantom Menace. There's definitely some cool editing here. But there's also some editing like this. So we get Maul versus Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan here. Then we get Maul dual wielding. You can see he's got his lightsaber in two-sword mode here. Against Marok and the 11th Brother. Yeah, so then he blocks Marok, takes on the 11th Brother. There's a fight there. Then we cut back to to the Phantom Menace fight before we then splash back into this fight as he's taking on both of them again. Then he's walking down. They tried to kill me. And then here, oh, I had forgotten there was a bit of Maul fighting both Devon and her master. That's going to be interesting. I wasn't actually expecting there to be a fight like this. But I guess it does make sense that there would be. Anyways, yeah, so then we cut to him fighting the Jedi in the Phantom Menace. Is that a background of that shot? I'm guessing it probably is. This doesn't quite feel like it's what it's actually there. Maybe it is. I'm just being forgetful. Then Maul's doing some sort of flip or fall backwards, parallel, of course, to him being cut in half by Kenobi. And he says, they failed. And then we get the train sequence again. And then we get Maul have his lightsaber up against something before he slams them together in a more obvious version of his dual lightsaber mode. Then Maul cuts through the previous shot to see him fighting against some pikes. And then, yeah, then we have him fighting against the Devon's master. With definitely doesn't have his back completely turned to Devon's master there. Devon's master definitely could have just cut him in half. I suspect this will be the fight where Devon's master eventually dies and Maul will blame it on the Inquisitors. But I don't know. We get that fight against him and the Inquisitors in the rocky area. Then we get some more repeat shots of him fighting some pikes and droids. And then, oh, I love this trailer. I almost dropped everything the day this trailer came out to make a video about it. I love this trailer because of, well, this line and the part of it follows. But it opens with Maul crawling through some sewers as Sidious at the end of Lawless is saying, you have been replaced. You are no longer my apprentice. And then he stands up, defiant, and says, I mastered the Force and the Force serves me. Repeatedly, over and over and over again. And I can't stress enough how much I love this line. I will probably make a whole video paralleling it and, of course, Chirrut Inway's line from Rogue One, I am one with the Force and the Force is with me, and Maul's repeating, I master the Force and the Force serves me, as like the dark side response. This perfectly identifies the differences in the two ideologies between the Jedi and the Sith, and I love it. I want to talk about it more, and I probably will at some point, but not now. The trailer itself, I don't think there's anything really all that much interesting. He's fighting the Pikes again, and that's a very sad Pike there. Yeah, that's a very dead Pike. Yeah, the new trailer arrives. We see him fighting Marok again on there. I don't remember if we've seen some troopers on speeders there. We get Maul doing some sort of force action there in the fight against Marok. Not sure what's going on here. But we then see some stuff crashing. Then we see, is this a third fight between Maul and the Inquisitors? I think it might be, or it might be the first one that we had. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think this is probably the first one that continued. Then we get some more shots of the gangway fight, and then we get Maul cutting up the ATST a bit more. Then the LAT gunship drops down. Then we get Maul throwing the lightsaber again, and him jumping down. All the while, I master the Force and the Force serves me is being repeated over and over again throughout this entire trailer. This looks to be Maul, again, two sword mode, fairly obviously now, fighting against the two Inquisitors. Presumably this is in the Rocky fight, I'm guessing. I don't really know. And then we get some more train fight. And then, yeah. And we get into Maul's Journey trailer. I was apprenticed to the most powerful Sith Lord of all. As we see him, this is supposed to be a fairly new location, although similar design languages is, so I'm not entirely sure. And you may know him as the Emperor, as the Emperor's laughing. And this is the Emperor's arrival shot from the Bad Batch. The one scene he appears in season 2, and everything goes right for the Bad Batch right up until the Emperor reveals that it was all actually a part of his plan. I love that scene. And I just want to talk about it here. Yes, the Emperor used to be Maul's master. The Maul was destined to become so much more. I'm not convinced that's actually true, but Maul probably was told that it's true by Palpatine. And then we see this is, of course, Phantom Apprentice, Siege of Mandalore, where he's ignited his lightsaber to fight Ahsoka. And then he was robbed of that Maul was robbed of that destiny. He lived in the darkness as we see Savage. Hey, look, it's Savage! Please actually have Savage. I've heard it does. I so want them to actually address Maul's feelings over Savage's death. Please, please, please. You put Savage in the trailers. Please tell me that means you remembered he actually existed. Please, 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 please. And then, yeah, we cut to Maul rambling. In the shadows. He was discarded, forgotten. Then we get his primal scream once he had been revived by Talzin. And then he says the formerly Darth, now just Mauline from Rebels. As we see him about to cut down some villagers. Then we get the pirate attack. He had to find his own way. Siege of Mandalore stuff. Him alongside Savage. Remember Savage? About to fight Palpatine. And then we get him making his fortune and power as he attacks. I think this is the Black Sun base one. Yeah, because Bo-Katan's here. Bo-Katan's not with them when they attack. But Nal Hutta, as they all march in, as he's gaining his fortune and power. And then we see him with his fortune and power on the throne of Mandalore, all happy at the peak of his power before Sidious comes in. I think this is at the end of Shades of Reason, is it? Whatever. The one where he fights Vizsla. So it might be during the Siege of Mandalore. I don't remember. Is it the same outfit he's wearing in? I can't just find it in a quick scan. Yeah, can we see his outfit? Yeah, I think this is probably the one at the end of the I'm going to call it Shades of Reason, not 100% sure that's what it's called, as he's smiling, having gained all his power, and the Mandalorians are all kneeling before him. Well, not that one, but shh. That's not what the scene's about. And then Almec's arriving here to tell him that everything's going well, and he said, Maul saying, I felt certain of my destiny once more, which actually, once again, that really fits with Almec walking up, about to tell Maul that everything's going well. So, yeah, the good editing over at that. You could really just line that up over any of these scenes, really. Being over this one specifically is quite fitting. Yeah, Maul was certain of his destiny once more. He had his power. He was in charge. He was ruling the galaxy. And then, that's before his former master cast me aside. Ish. I mean, I guess he's literally casting him aside here. But, yeah. And tortured him. And it doesn't... I don't think they mention it, but it used him to murder his mother. Bring up that part as well, please. Much as I don't like the Son of Dathomir in totality, I do... Like, the general outline is good of Maul have his mother murdered by Palpatine. I want that to be brought up as well as Savage. Yep, and then we see some Pikes coming in. And there were many who prospered from his misfortune. As the Pikes are now all preparing to have clearly left him. And are no longer working as part of the Shadow Collective. Which, well, poor them. Or poor Maul, well, really poor them, because Maul's about to make a fuss with the Pikes. And then we see these two guys having their little meeting again, prospering from Maul's misfortune as the crime empire has fallen. Again, some Pikes talking, and then Maul is making the Pikes remember. Soon they will all pay. And now he ambushes the cops and cuts them down. I think that was the final trailer. Oh, it's not. There's still the He is Shadow trailer. I forget who's saying this, but he is, in these times, he prefers to keep his presence a shadow. And as he's saying that, he's confronting Devon, who has picked up half of his lightsaber, presumably at Maul's bidding, basically. And he just turns out the light so he can remain a shadow. I'm assuming this is the scene where he's pouring the tea and his lightsaber's lying alongside there, so she's presumably forced it to her, and then Maul turns off the light on her, and this is probably the scene where Maul turns her properly to the dark side. And he remains a shadow, which is actually what the Inquisitor called him in Rebels, as they were hunting him back in Twilight of the Apprentice. And then we see this little guy who's the same guy as... where is it? Was it not in this trailer? It might not have been in this trailer, actually. Yeah, it wasn't in this trailer. He's the same one as the... I'm thinking he's at least. He's the same one who's in the big bulky armor and looks like a big, scary, intimidating guy. No, he's just a little guy. And he's saying, have you ever heard of Maul? As we see Maul cutting down some people. Then we have Marok talking to his lord. So it's almost certainly be either... It could be the Grand Inquisitor, but it's probably Vader, maybe Palpatine. And he's telling him that Maul does indeed live. So they've clearly heard rumors that Maul lives, and then the Inquisitor is telling him Maul does live. And then we get the same more. I think there's a bit more of that fight between those two. Bit repeat shots there. I think this is actually what that guy's shooting at. And then we get Maul telling some people to die well, which is what he told Gar Saxon at the end of Siege of Mandalore. Of course, Gar Saxon doesn't appear here because Gar Saxon became an Imperial loyalist after the Siege of Mandalore, whereas Rook Kast has clearly stayed loyal to Maul. She was always the one more shown to be more in charge of his Shadow Collective operations, whereas Gar Saxon is more in charge of the Mandalorian warrior side of the operations. So I think that's fairly fitting that Gar Saxon chose to stick by Mandalore, whereas Rook Kast chose to stick by Maul and the Shadow Collective. And then we get that same shot of him merging his lightsabers together. And then we get some more of him fighting. I'm guessing this is... I'm not sure when this fight's going to be. But yeah, we get him fighting some people. And then some poor pikes. Haha, happy man. We get that same shot of them fighting back stormtroopers. Yeah, good trailers. Stupid advert. Does the Star Wars channel not have adverts on the things, whereas the IGN channels do? That could fit because the trailers have only appeared on the IGN ones. Oh, they don't have subtitles on this video. That's annoying. Oh yeah, so this is the first clip of the show, and I imagine it's going to be fairly early on. We get some droids and some police all having identified that there's a disturbance going on here, and I'm presuming that they're tracking Rook Kast in this ship, transporting some stolen goods to Maul. On this ship, not realizing that this is Maul, of course, they all come in to set up an ambush, and there's a destroyed droid there, and they come in, they land all surrounding them, and then they only pay attention to the one ship, completely ignoring this ship, which, even assuming Maul wasn't on it, and there was just a few more of, like, these guys on it, you've just shown your backs to them. Like, what are you going to do if they just come in and just shoot you down? Which they could easily do. Like, some of these guys should be facing backwards. You're not very good police officers here. But they hold them down, they tell them to surrender, but Kast goes, oh well, we might as well surrender now. And then Maul comes down and they hear some clanking of footsteps. And he turns around, realizing, oh shit. And then Maul ignites his lightsaber. One blade, and then they start shooting him. He pulls it forwards, and now he's in two-blade mode. But Mandalorians and Night Brothers shoot down the ships, and Maul then comes in, deflected most blasters, and then he jumps down on the final guard. And, well, they're not alive for much longer. And, well, they're not alive for much longer. And then we get into the second clip, emergency on the walkway, as we see Maul having a stare down with Devon's master here. Presumably this is after Devon flipped their ship. Looks to be this, not Devon's master flipped their ship. It seems to be the same general shot background for that. And then Maul staring him down. Still no subtitles for some reason. Then we see Devon hiding in the corner. She's clearly not fallen into Maul's clutches just yet. She runs out trying to reach her master. She gets trapped by Rook Cass and dragged in. Then a bunch of police all show up. And Devon's master's going like, yeah, you're screwed. We've got you. I don't think they would be even if Maul chose to fight here. But then he chooses to no. He's going to make a distraction. He causes damage to the walkway. And then they all run off. And Devon's master leaves her. And do we get another shot of Devon? No, we don't. They go rescuing them. Wait, no, back. Yeah, and then we see Devon looking like she wants help from her master here, who then goes, sorry, I can't help you. And he turns away to go fight, to go save this thing, who saves the damage Maul caused as Maul escapes, unassailed pretty much. A little assailed, but not really. And then he's struggling to hold up the walkway, but they manage to save all the falling civilians. And everything's good in the end, except of course Maul has taken Devon, and he's presumably going to use her to, take over use her taking over and her master choosing not to save her, as like trying to convince her that, hey, you know what, I'm not really a bad guy. I'm going to stick by you. Your master did it. Your master let me take you because I'd torture you or worse. But anyways, that is all the trailers and clips for Maul Shadow Lord. Okay, also, we also have the episode titles revealed for, I think, all the episodes. Yeah, all 10 of them. So the first one's called The Dark Revenge. So that's probably him getting his revenge against the Pikes, I'm guessing. Then we get Sinister Schemes is episode 2. Not that fairly generic, as is Whispers of the Unknown and Pride and Vengeance for the 3 and 4. But then episode 5 is called Inquisition, so that's presumably when the Inquisitors are going to show up. Then we get Night of the Haunted, which is probably the Inquisitors starting to do some shit. Then we get Call to Oblivion and The Creeping Fear, fairly generic titles again. Then we get Strange Allies. I feel like that's going to be when the cops turn on the Inquisitors and join up with Maul. And the final episode is just called Finale. Might have a more proper name later, but they just don't want to reveal it. It might, and presumably the Inquisitor's master, whether that's the Grand Inquisitor or Vader, probably not Palpatine, but maybe Palpatine, are going to show up and cause some havoc.